All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm John Hudson with Mortgage Financial Services, and I'm passionate about helping mortgage brokers utilize programs such as the Mortgage Credit Certificate to put more people into homes. So I know it's pretty crazy out there, and oh boy, look, everybody's 201, and now everybody's hopping in here. So forgive me if I get distracted letting people jump into the room here, but thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, I must say I've really been looking forward to joining everyone today, and this is going to be some fun. So I hope you guys get some good takeaways and can go out there and sell and utilize these programs to help put more people into homes. So with that, a couple little housekeeping items. Oh, let's see, look, more people continue to hop in here. A couple little housekeeping items. One thing I really just want to make sure that everybody is aware of is that we do have a whole department that literally just helps people with down payment assistance loans and mortgage credit certificate loans. So, and of course, public service announcement, we do more than just down payment assistance loans. Yes, we do lots of normal conventional FHA, VA, USDA financing as well. So, but nonetheless, here is Steve Merca and his daughter Jordan Merca. They are the two leaders of our down payment assistance department. And really, if you've got questions, they're there to help you. And of course, you also have myself, my colleague Brad Parlin, Jessica Little, and Adrienne Graham. The number one thing I really got to stress there is never be afraid just to reach out. I think that's one of the things that makes us a little bit unique at Mortgage Financial Services is that we are here to help you no matter what. Also, a little housekeeping item. If you're in the Metroplex, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it's still not too late to sign up and join us next week, next Wednesday, from 2 to 4 p.m., followed by a nice little happy hour. Join us for our broker roundtable on DPA. Of course, we've got the cute little Halloween theme, Don't Get Spooked by DPA. I think it's just important that you know how to use these programs, even just more importantly than using them, I would say it's knowing how to sell them. Because one thing I could say for certain is that if you're not using or talking about down payment assistance product within your sphere of influence, you just got to know that your competition is. Now, and I'm going to show you a slide here later on. Fortunately, with the help of mortgage brokers, MFS is now ranked number 13 in the state of Texas by TSHAC as far as the number of DPA loans that are out there. But your retail competition is still very steep, and they really have cornered the market on this. So while we continue to inch away, I need you as mortgage brokers to be able to learn these products as well. So if you're in the Metroplex, please join us next week. And to RSVP, simply just email jmerca@mfsus.com. So with that, why are you here? I don't think this slide really has to be explained too much, other than if you look at the from 2020 where we hit like the floor right of the U.S. 10-year Treasury, and then the sheer velocity of where how quickly it took right to get to being roughly 470, 475 where we stand today. You can go back and see that. We're talking 10-year yield thresholds that are crossing that we haven't seen in the last 15 years, which is definitely pretty nuts. So with that being said, why are you here? Well, because the higher rates are, the less there are of loans that are out there. I love this slide too. This was just from a little bit earlier today. And this is just the last 12 months. And you can see here, again, quite frankly, really in the last 2 months, we've seen, again, this sheer velocity ramp up as far as the drop in value of mortgage-backed securities, which is doing one thing. It's making rates go up, right? Well, as you know, as rates go up, there's less people that are looking to move. And if you look here at this chart, I love this one because I don't know, maybe I get a little nostalgic. I go back and I see 1995 on there and remember how awesome my senior year of high school was. So yeah, that's the reality, right? Right now in today's current environment, mortgage purchase applications are, well, they're the lowest they've been since I graduated from high school. So, what's really nuts is if you look at, 02, 03, and you can see that, man, when we really hit the boom, But nonetheless, I got into the mortgage business in 1998, right? So in my 25-year career, this is the roughest environment that we've been in. So as salespeople, we also have to be, well, we have to utilize all the tools that are out there and available for us. But with all those negative things that I just showed you there, and trust me, I'm not here to depress anybody. But if you look at this chart, I love this one. Why? Because it really shows me, and this is part of the reason, it just reinforces why I'm bullish on housing. Let's see, it just reinforces why I'm bullish on housing. And that is, okay, so keep this little fun fact in mind, right? You see we're down at the bottom and you can see like the age group and you can see 35. Keep in mind that last year in 2022, the average age of the first-time homebuyer was 36 years old. So I look behind and I see just this wave, right, of coming up over the next few years of more people that are going to be peaking out and getting at that average first-time homebuyer age. So there's still a tremendous amount of demand that's coming right behind that, even though we're in this period of higher interest rates. Now, with that being said, what do higher rates do? Well, they make it a little bit more challenging for people to be able to afford homes, right? So that's, again, why we have to utilize these tools such as the MCC and even DPA. But I love this chart, and I geek out when I see demographics. And this tells me that we have years and years of high demand for home ownership. So who's going to be there to take care of these people? All right, let me go here. All right. Okay. And then this one. Well, this kind of goes back into what I was saying. This is from the Wall Street Journal. I just pulled this off today. And you could see in the years 2021, 2022, there was a drop, right? And that drop was where rates went from 3% to 7% and seemingly overnight. And then you look at 2023, and you could see here that, well, home sales really have dropped off. But why have home sales dropped off? And that's something that we have to think about. Well, number one, the move-up buyer is basically out of the equation in today's environment for the most part, right? If they're locked in at a 2.75% rate, are they really going to jump out of that and move into an 8% rate? Probably not too quickly, right? I mean, that's what they're going to do. So with that, though, it just reinforces, okay, home sales are down, but there's still the first-time home buyer market that we really need to focus on. So that's where the mortgage credit certificate from TSHAC can really come in handy. So right now, TSHAC is the only real provider for or issuer of the mortgage credit certificate for the state of Texas. Now, we also partner with our friends over at the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, but they no longer have the MCC product to offer. So right now, we're doing everything with TSHAC. And yes, I know for those of you that have not seen it before, TSHAC is pronounced, even though it's TSAHC, it is TSHAC. So with that, so what programs do they offer? Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't just do my soft plug again for our down payment assistance team and remind everybody that TSHAC, with their DPA product, we have both the Homes for Texas Heroes home loan program as well as the Home Sweet Texas home loan program. And then, of course, those programs can be used with the mortgage credit certificate, or the mortgage credit certificate can be used by itself. But just as a quick little refresher, what is a hero? Well, a hero is teachers, firefighters, cops, school nurses, veterans, first responders, school librarians. So again, these are just, I want you to put your sales and marketing hat on and remember that there are folks out there in certain professions that you should be marketing to if you're not doing it today, and just reminding everybody in your sphere of influence that, hey, I've got special access to programs for teachers and firefighters and cops. And if your borrowers don't happen to be a quote unquote hero, well, just remember that not all heroes wear capes. For example, I've got it here, what if your client's not a hero? Well, the Home Sweet Texas product, down payment assistance, is available for everybody else: plumbers, truck drivers, nurses, loan officers, and even realtors. So you have access to these programs as well. But I digress. Here's what you're here for today. What is the mortgage interest tax credit? Well, the mortgage credit certificate is a program that's available only for first-time home buyers. It is a dollar for dollar tax credit with no maximum value, which is huge because, when I go out and I do my classes and whatnot, I get a lot of old, veterans, mortgage veterans that will ask, well, hey, I thought there used to be a cap on the MCC. And that's true. Up until a few years ago, the maximum interest credit cap was at $2,000 a year. Well, right now, there is no cap. So that's awesome. Now, it is for primary residences only. And what's cool, and I'm going to show you some numbers here in a minute where you can actually use the income to help lower your debt to income ratio. You could use the MCC again with down payment assistance products or without down payment assistance products. And just a quick little reminder, if you do have it in conjunction with our Heroes product, then you or your borrowers will actually get their fees waived for the MCC. So really, really cool benefit there. So what is a first-time buyer? This is a great question and one that comes up a lot. In the traditional sense, we're all just kind of primed to think that, hey, they haven't owned a property in 3 years. Well, it goes a little bit deeper than that for the MCC. So the technical definition of a first-time buyer for the purposes of the MCC is somebody that has not owned a primary residence in the last 3 calendar years. So think about that for a second, primary residence. So case in point, and these are a couple examples that we've seen just even recently, borrower owns a rental property, but they've been renting for 3 years. They're technically considered a first-time buyer for the purposes of the MCC. Another one too is, hey, our borrower here was added to their parents' title on a property, but our borrower never took residence there. They're technically a first-time home buyer. Another example would be if somebody gained a property through probate. As long as they don't take residence in that property, then they are considered a first-time buyer. Now, also, if the property is located in a targeted area, then our borrower doesn't need to be a first-time buyer in reality. And then one last little one, and the third one, and this one is funny. One thing that we have a lot of here in Texas, we have a lot of veterans, right? Military veterans. And with that, our qualified veterans, which means that they're no longer active duty and they've been honorably discharged. So like 99.99% of veterans out there, right, are considered qualified, which means that they could own a house today and buy another house tomorrow anywhere, as long as they qualify, and they would be considered a first-time buyer for the purposes of the MCC. Now, also, they could even be living in a house today, convert that existing house into a rental property, right? Buy another home that they're going to move into, and they would be considered a first-time buyer for the purposes of the mortgage credit certificate. So, if one thing I want you to take out of this short class that we do today is some of these little sales nuggets, because if one of these things can just pop up in conversation with either a prospect or a realtor, it might be the difference between you getting a loan or not. So just keep these little nuggets in mind. So how do we calculate the amount of the mortgage interest tax credit? So what is the tax credit? So currently, as I say currently, so as of 10/17 of 2023, the mortgage credit certificate is 20% of the mortgage interest the borrower pays per year. So for an example, so if we take, somebody else coming in here. So if I take a loan amount of $275 or $275,000 at an interest rate of 8.5%, that borrower is going to pay $23,375 in their first full year of mortgage interest, right? So 20% of that, which is what their credit would be, is going to be $4,675. That's a lot. So there's no longer a cap on of $2,000, as I mentioned earlier. And so, yeah, so that's a very, very simple math. It's 20% times however much interest they pay, and that is the per year interest. Now, I use 8.5% interest rate there because That's what today's interest rate is on a 4% down payment assistance loan. So I just use that as the example here. But again, I'm going to put the marketing hat on for a second. And, while that 8.5% may sound really, really high, I guess in kind of reality, it is, right? Much higher than what you're used to over the last 2 years. So how does we kind of sell that to your borrower a little bit? Well, we know that the note rate is going to be 8.5%, but if they qualify for the MCC, then I like to talk about what their effective interest rate is. And that's using the simple calculation, which is right here in the top bullet point, 8.5 note rate times 0.8, right? Because the mortgage credit certificate, we're taking 20% off the top, which means that my effective interest rate is 6.8%. It's a really, really simple way to show your borrower that with this tax credit, they're not really paying 8.5, they're actually paying 6.8. Why? How? Because they're going to get all that 20% of that interest they paid given back to them. Now, for the purposes of adding additional income for qualifying, it's kind of the same simple math, right? I take the amount of the tax credit that they're going to get, which in this example was $4,675. It's got more people coming in here. Was $4,675. And I divide that by 12, and that gives me $389.58 per month. That's what I could get to use for qualifying that borrower for a house. Very, very cool, huh? So what is the difference between a tax credit and a tax deduction? And this is good too, because when you're out there talking to realtors, when you're out there talking to borrowers, home builders, anyone that's in your referral sphere of influence, or even just posting stuff on social media, I think it's good to note out the difference here. A tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction of the amount of the tax liability that the borrower owes. A tax deduction just reduces our taxable income, right? So does everybody kind of understand the difference there? Please feel free to jump into the chat or even into the Q&A for questions, comments, and concerns. But yeah, so nonetheless, tax credit, dollar for dollar reduction of tax liability. Tax deduction, we're just lowering the taxable income. Okay, so an MCC allows you to take advantage of actually both forms of savings. So I want to put this one out there too, because a lot of people don't realize that, okay, I'm going to get my tax credit for 20% of the interest that I pay, but what do I get to do with the remaining 80%? Well, just so you know, and again, while you're out there talking to your referral partners, you can actually take the remainder and still use that for the purposes of the mortgage interest deduction. So just case in point, right? Now, I think the standard deduction for single borrowers maybe like $13,000-$14,000 off the top of my head. I'm not a tax professional, so don't quote me on that one. But nonetheless, I can tell you without a doubt that once your borrower becomes a homeowner in today's environment, particularly with the interest rates and what they're at, your borrower is going to be doing they're going to be they're not going to take a standard deduction. They're going to be itemizing the return. So in this example here, right? So we're going to take $23,375, and that's the total amount of mortgage interest the borrower pays. I'm going to deduct the credit, right? The $4,675 plus any property taxes the borrower pays as a deduction, and then they're going to take the remainder $18,700 as part of the deduction too. So your borrower's truly going to be getting a tax advantage there. So your borrower's truly going to be getting a tax advantage here by simply being a homeowner. And I kind of go back to our role as educators. I believe that this is something that every mortgage professional needs to be doing today, is showing people the simple math, right, of how important it is to be a homeowner. So how does the borrower also still benefit from this? Well, we're literally putting money back in your borrower's pocket. So, and I've got this little visual aid here just to kind of show, right? So a borrower throughout the year, they have a payroll income tax withholding, right? I mean, Uncle Sam's taking a chunk of their paycheck out every year. So if our borrower just happens to have an annual tax liability of, say, $10,000, and let's say that they had $12,000 taken out of their payroll, out of their W-2. Well, obviously they're going to get a tax refund of $2,000, right? Very simple there. But if you go back and you use our example here, right out of the gate, I'm going to take that $4,675 of the MCC credit out of that tax liability of $10,000. So now my tax liability here is only $5,325. Does that make sense? Right? So annual tax liability minus the amount of the credit, the $4,675. So now the borrower's remaining tax liability is $5,325. So we just, by simply giving the borrower the MCC, we just increased their refund by $4,675. That's awesome. Now, if you as a mortgage professional, are making annual phone calls, it'd be a great idea to remind people around tax season every year of that $4,675 that you got them, right? And that's why they need to be sending you all of their friends and family to buy a house. So question here, yes, will we get a copy of the slide deck? Yes, I'm going to send an email out with some bullet points and links and everything that we talked about today. And then where does the tax credit come from? Okay, John. Yeah, so the tax credit, let's see here, just to go back super fast, is 20% of the mortgage interest the borrower pays per year. That's how we get the tax credit. So I hope that helps. And if not, we could chat on offline later on. So a couple things just to note. The borrower, this really is the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm going to show you something here in just a minute too that I think will really illustrate that. But the borrower does actually get like an actual certificate, and they're going to use that and file it with their income tax return every single year. And I don't know how many folks that are on the call here today use TurboTax, right? But if you're using TurboTax, one of the very first questions that you get asked is, do you own a home? Yes or no? Click yes, great. And it takes you down over to this bucket, and then it says, do you have a mortgage credit certificate? Yes or no? Right. So even TurboTax will help remind your borrowers. The tax credit cannot be larger than any federal income tax liability. So if they pay no tax, they're not going to get a credit. So just to keep that in the back of your mind. And I've got another slide here I'm going to show you to kind of help illustrate some of that. But here's what is cool. Any unused portion can be carried forward for up to 3 years. So let's just say that you have somebody that may not have a very big tax liability today, but you know what? They're going to be advancing in their career here. They may have more tax liability in the future. Perhaps they're self-employed. Well, whatever part of the MCC they don't use today or this year, they can carry it forward up to 3 years. So that's a pretty cool little nugget there to remember there. Again, just to reiterate, you can use the MCC by itself or in conjunction with our down payment assistance programs. If the MCC is used with a non-DPA loan, it does have to be a fixed rate, but there's no minimum credit score or no maximum debt to income requirements on that. Basically, the borrower just needs to be able to qualify for a loan, and they can use the MCC. I do have to point this out there, right? Here's the little asterisk mark, so that way, people can't say, "Oh man, but this sounds too good to be true." Well, I will say this: so there is the potential that a borrower could be subject to recapture tax. And what is that? Well, that's basically the IRS saying, "Hey, we gave you too much money, so we're going to take some of that back." But I will say that it's extremely rare for a borrower to actually get hit with recapture tax. 3 things have to happen, but all at the same time. 1, the borrower has to sell their house within 9 years, which, okay, I mean, that could happen. 2, they have to make a net profit on the sale. Okay, well, that's possible. 3, the IRS has to see that their income increased 5% every single year that they lived in the house. So let's say that they sell their house in year 5 and their income went up 5% the first year, 5% the second year, 5% the third year, 2% the fourth year. They sell it in year 5, they are not going to be subject to the recapture tax. Right. So I hope that kind of shows how rare that the recapture tax can happen. I'll put it this way: even my friends up there at T-Shack in Austin, that if you ask them when the last time they saw somebody get hit with recapture, it's they struggle to remember. I'll put it that way. So just to kind of illustrate again, when you're using the MCC for income, and I do have to put my little asterisk mark out there. The MCC can be used to help people qualify, yes, but we don't want to use the MCC to make a bad loan, a really, really bad loan, into just a bad loan, if that makes sense, right? I mean, the loan, people ask me all the time, what are our overlays? And, the number one overlay I'd say is, does the loan make sense? So your borrower that's really a 64 back ratio, but we're getting them down to a 57 with the MCC. Somehow it's getting an AUS approval, but their bank statements are filled with NSFs, and they've had 4 jobs in the last 2 years with 100% payment shock. I mean, that's a loan that we really got to look at and wonder, okay, are we putting that borrower in a position to succeed or fail? So I just have to say we have to use our sense there. But I digress. When we're using the MCC for income, if the top line here, the top chart, right? If they pay no tax, they don't get a credit. So you can see at line 24, which is the second page of it, 1040. You can see your total tax, 0. Well, in that example, they paid no tax, so we can't give them any credit for income. But in the bottom one here, you could see that the borrowers actually had a tax liability of $3,926, which would mean that I'd be able to give them a income credit for up to $3,926 per year. Does that make sense? I hope so. So here's where I like to say it's the gift that keeps on giving. But wait, there's more. So the MCC really can be quite powerful when we use these examples, and this is why I love to visualize, and I love to help show mortgage professionals how to take these and visualize them too. Because if you could show a borrower that, hey, look, we're going to get you in this house today for $300,000 for a loan. Yeah, I know the interest rate's 7.5% today, but check this out, Mr. Borrower. In the first year, you're going to get $4,481 back in the form of a tax credit. That's real money going back into your pocket. And if you happen to keep this loan for 5 years, that's almost $22,000 where you're going to be putting into your back pocket. Now, also, Mr. Borrower, after 10 years, look at this. That number is now $42,420. And assuming they're in there for their full 30-year term, that's almost $100,000 that you put back in their pocket. And so I think when you can help people visualize this, it makes a lot more sense to them, and they kind of go, wow, I want that. How do I get that? Another thing just to point out is that when, not if, but when that borrower refinances, you can actually help them keep their mortgage credit certificate. And this has to be part of your sales, your upfront sales interview with your borrower, because as well as I do, in this example, it was a 7.5% rate. Now, I don't think they're going to drop this far, but let's just say 6 months from now, rates are at 5.5%. And borrowers, they're getting bombarded with every piece of mail and phone call from Rocket, and you name it, everybody and their dog is trying to get your borrowers to refinance, right? Well, if your borrowers are thinking and already have it drilled in their head that if they come back to you for their refinance, that you're going to help them keep their MCC, well, then, good Lord, then you've got a much greater chance out of anyone else to be able to to get that deal. Now, the reality is, can they get their MCC with anyone else? Yeah, because technically your borrower just has to go to T-Shack, pay a couple $100, fill out a form, and T-Shack will reissue the fee or reissue the MCC. But if you can keep them coming back to you, then now you've got that customer for life, right? So very, very powerful tool for both your borrower and you. So how do we get the MCC? The borrowers do still have to qualify. And I don't know how big this is on your screen there, but the income limits do come out by household size. So, if you could use here, just for example, I'm just going to pick on Dallas. So if you look at the Dallas, MSA, you can see that's Collin, Dallas, Denton, Ellis, Hunt, Kaufman, Rockwall. Huge chunk of North Texas, right? So if you have a 1 to 2 person household, the income limit is 103,100. But if you got 2 people and they got a kid, that income limit jumps up to 118,565. Now, if that property happens to be in a targeted area, now look at our income limits. That jumps up to 123,720 and 144,340 respectively. Let's see here. Okay, Judy, please explain more on the heroes. Okay, I'll come back to that here in just a little bit. Houston area, you can see my income limit is 93.2 to 107. San Antonio, 96 to 110. Fort Worth side of things, 96 to 110. Austin Round Rock, 117 to 134. And if your county is not listed on that list there, then you use that top line, which is 90,100 for the first 1 to 2 people in the house. And again, 2 people and a kid, it jumps up to 103,615. So those are my income limits. Now, the next question I generally get is, what is a targeted area? And I'm going to show you guys here in just a minute, but TSHEC has a really, really accessible map that you can go and play with, and you can identify targeted areas. So targeted area is generally an area of lower income that's targeted for development. But I think you'll find that if you go through and you look at this map or at these maps, that a lot of the areas that are grayed out, they're not always just bad parts of town. There's lots of gentrification taking place and real opportunities to get people into homes. Now, there's one other little caveat, right? We already covered them. So borrowers have to be first-time buyer, by meeting the TSHAC MCC definition. 2, there's an income limit. And third really is more, in my opinion, a marketing opportunity for mortgage professionals out there. Because if you can check this out, my sales price limits are, for the base of the state, $481,176,000 or $176. Dallas area, pick on Dallas again. My sales price limit is $541,594. That's the max sales price that somebody could buy a house with and qualify for the mortgage credit certificate. Now, why do I say that's a sales opportunity? Well, because in reality, you're not going to see a whole lot of borrowers, being able to afford or qualify with payments, $500,000 homes and get the tax credit. But your realtors, if any one of those realtors has a listing that's at that dollar amount or below, they should be putting, hey, this home qualifies for a federal income tax credit in their MLS rider. Now, why do you want to teach them how to do that? Because it's going to help your realtors get their phones to ring. And if you can help your realtors get their phones to ring, then they're going to be apt to ring your phone when they have a prospect come through, right? So in reality, if you think about this, it's, you're opening up conversation with listing agents by going out there and stating, hey, I've got, hey, Kelly, I see your listing over there at 123 Main Street. I see it's for $500,000. Did you know that house qualifies for a tax credit? Yes or no? No, you didn't. Oh, well, I tell you what, most of your buyers, they're just looking at houses online today anyway, right? So if they find your listing on Zillow and they call you up because they're interested in learning more about a tax credit, it can be an opportunity for you, Kelly, to capture that client if they're not already represented. Right? You kind of see where my pitch is going there. So just remember that when you're just as a takeaway. So now, how do you get paid on these? I know it's a big question because that a lot of people have, because on down payment assistance loans, unfortunately, you are limited to 150 basis points plus processing fees, right? DPA loans, we all know there's a revenue restriction on these. But if you're using the mortgage credit certificate with a non-DPA loan, then it's your normal full compensation. Lender paid or borrower paid up to 275 basis points. That's on you. Very, very cool, right? So let's see here. Oh, the reality again, you catch them, we'll clean them and fry them. That's what's I think is so great about it, or not think. It's what I know is so great about us. It's because I do have an entire team that's here at your disposal, that's here to help you walk through your scenarios. We just want you to be able to upload your 3.4 into our system, reissue credit, run AUS, upload your credit docs, and let us know. We'll still do TBD underwrites, to help your borrowers, because again, in today's environment, let's give your borrowers that opportunity to really be able to go out there and negotiate when they do find a property they want to make an offer on. Best way to do that is to have a no BS TBD approval at their disposal. And I love showing this because the broker is rising. So MFS, and I can't wait for next week's numbers to come out. MFS is now ranked number 13 as far as the top lenders for TSHAC in the state. Now, number 13, that's all broker business. That's all you guys. But as you can see, I ranked up above. I've got some good friendly competitors, some targets on that I put on some people's back. My next target, I want brokers to be top 10 in the state, and then I want us to be top 5, and then ultimately be the number 1. Right? So, but I need your help in doing that, and we're here to help you do that. So, questions, comments, concerns? I see a couple questions here. Help me see big picture here. TSHAC is Texas state agency that promotes homeownership for Texans, basically, right? Yes, John, that is correct. So TSHAC is a nonprofit state agency that is there to promote, well, just that, homeownership in the state of Texas. Let's see here. Okay, so here's what I promised to show you guys real quick. So here's today's interest rates, and don't worry, because I'm going to send these links to everybody here. Here is the income limits, right? You're going to get a link to this. Here's that map that I was talking about. This map is super easy to navigate. You come through. I mean, I had helped a broker up in the Dallas area on a DPA deal. The borrower made too much money for regular DPA, so we needed to find a property in a targeted area. So I showed the broker how to use this map, and they wound up kind of going through here, and her and her realtor, and they found the borrower nice little bungalow somewhere down here in South Dallas. And just because that loan officer understood and we showed him how to use the targeted area map, it made that loan officer into what the best thing a realtor wants: commission insurance. Okay, so, and then here's this really, really cool calculator here. And this is, so you'll see, so let's just say, let's take a $300,000 loan. Let's say my rate is at 8.25. I'm just going to pick on that one. And I click submit. And very quickly, right, it'll spell me out. Here's 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 30 years. And I recommend using the calculator that TSHAC has here, because it's very simple to go and do your math, plug it in, and then just take a little screen share. You can cut and paste that to your customers and your referral partners and make it easy for them. Okay, a couple other questions here. Will you be distributing a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes, I'm going to be sending out this to everybody that's registered for the call today, along with some links and bullet points to help you out. Joseph here, do they get a physical certificate to give to tax professional? Yes, they they're, when we close, we handle everything for the borrower, right? When we close, borrower gets their keys, you get your check, realtor gets their check. Well, then at the back end, we have paperwork that we have to file and upload to the state. And then within about 30 days, the borrower is going to get an actual certificate in the mail that they're going to want to hang on to. So yes, they do get something physical. And then Michael here says, the standalone MCC, I was told that it's coming to an end as of 10/31/2023. Is that correct? Yes and no, Michael. So technically, as of today, as of 2:39 p.m. on the 17th of October, the 1st of November is the last day to make a reservation for a standalone MCC in its current form. However, been talking with my friends at the state, and more than likely what they're going to be doing is reducing the standalone MCC from 20% to 15% coverage after November 1 in order to keep the standalone MCC going, though. The 20% MCC with DPA is not going away. So just an FYI. So good question, though. Can the homeowner still file for the home exemption for the property tax? Yes, Judy, absolutely. This has nothing to do with property taxes. So, and that's why I was saying, when your borrowers really, this is just like just another reason to show our borrowers the benefits and the wealth creating opportunities of homeownership, because they're going to get the dollar for dollar tax credit applied to their federal income tax with the mortgage credit certificate, right? They get to write off on the standard deduction of their itemized deduction 80% of the remainder of their mortgage interest they pay, plus their state and local taxes maxed out currently with the tax code maxed out at $10,000. So again, we're reducing the tax liability of the borrower, putting money back in their pocket. Jake here, if a homeowner keeps the home but turns it into a rental a few years down the line, will they still receive the tax credit? No, Jake, unfortunately, when the borrower moves out of the property, if it's no longer a primary residence, then they cannot claim the mortgage credit certificate. So, but if they turn it into a rental, the tax benefits are still there, because then they could take, accelerated depreciation plus write off, any expenses on the house against any rental revenue. Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. I don't see any other questions in the queue. So with that, I will. Oh, Judy. Okay, yes. Do you have time to explain the Heroes program? Yeah, Judy, I'll take a couple minutes, and then we, just for everyone else's time, if they want to hop off, they can. But yes, the best way to and Ross, can you call me? Yes, Ross, I'll give you a buzz later. So, Judy, so the Heroes program is great, right? Because whether the borrower is a hero, quote, in quotes, or not a hero, these are our down payment assistance offerings, right? We have a grant program through TSHAC, which unfortunately isn't too viable today with the market volatility, but 99.9% of everything we're doing today falls into this category, the 3-year deferred forgivable second lien. Love this as a down payment assistance option over some of even the private DPA that we have access to, because everybody's DTIs are stretched in today's environment. And today, I can take this down payment assistance, right? The borrowers are going to get 4% assistance times whatever their loan amount is. And that is going to be a second lien at 0% interest with no payment due. And that's how we can help get them qualified, right? But from a marketing standpoint, our borrowers here, I get to go out there and talk about, hey, I've got, I've got special programs for teachers, for firefighters, for cops, for veterans, for first responders. And of course, you're just trying to get the phone to ring. And if the borrower calls you up and says, hey, but I'm a plumber, well, then you say, that's okay. I still have special programs for plumbers. It's called the Home Suite Texas. Because remember, the assistance program itself is the same down here. It's this. The only difference between the Home Suite Texas and the Homes for Heroes is that if a borrower happens to be a hero and they're using the down payment assistance with the mortgage credit certificate, then TSHAC is going to waive their MCC fee, which is, so the borrowers are going to save $500. So, I mean, Judy, in all reality, in a nutshell, the only difference is $500 for an MCC. But that doesn't mean that you do not want to be out there marketing and advertising to quote unquote heroes, especially when you're talking to your realtors. Case in point, I know an officer in Austin that twice a year, they go and they drop off, she goes and drops off pizzas at fire stations with a realtor friend. And both the realtor and the loan officer have gotten transactions out of doing that. None of them had anything to do with down payment assistance or the Heroes program, but they leveraged the marketing opportunity by saying they have access to special programs for heroes. Right. So, I mean, really, your marketing, ideas are endless there. I mean, every public school that I know has teacher in-service days. And when they do those teacher in-service days, they do allow for folks to come in and sponsor breakfasts or lunch for the teachers and give a little spiel. So again, you take the opportunity to go in there and say, hey, I've got special programs for teachers. We love you, teachers. Let us help you become a homeowner and partner up with a realtor, because maybe they already own a home. Maybe they might sell a house. Maybe they might be buying another house. So that's that. I hope that kind of explains it in a nutshell. Let's see here. Question: in the event of transitioning the property into an investment property down the line, can the borrower reapply for the MCC, then take the MCC to the new evidence? No. So John, so once they have an MCC with a property, they can only have the MCC with that particular property unless two things happen. Either A, if they buy another house that happens to be in a targeted area, then yes, then they could get a new MCC. Or if they happen to be a qualified veteran, then they could buy another house and get the MCC again. So I hope that answers your question there. Do we have marketing materials for this? Yeah, Melissa, we do. We've got some marketing stuff we're actually building out a website right now that's going to be basically just this for y'all as mortgage brokers. So yeah, so we've got some we've got some great ideas and great things, and plus, just reach out to me and my little marketing brain will help you come up with ideas in your local market. I mean, me personally, I'm not as big on flyers per se. I think, in today's environment, from a social media standpoint, yes, you have to be on social media, but I believe that the real opportunity is to go out there and provide knowledge and value versus just little flyers. But if you needed a catchy image or something, gosh, I mean, it takes 2 seconds to go, hell, you could just copy this straight from T-Shack's website and send it out, or you could just do Google picture of first responders, and oh look, here's here's my picture. I'm just going to copy this, paste it into a Facebook post, and say, hey, happy First Responders Day. I've asked me about our special programs for first responders. So you can kind of see where I'm going with that for that standpoint. Another question. Lino, you're welcome. And then Judy again, what is the process of applying for the MCC? Is there a form? So the process for applying for the MCC, we make it really easy, Judy. I mean, if you go back to, let's see here, where I was saying you catch them, we clean them and fry them. That's what we do. So your borrower will sign documents at closing, and then we handle the rest. So as we underwrite the loan file, we're going to make sure that your borrower qualifies for the mortgage credit certificate, right? And if they do, then we handle everything else. So there's that. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, with that, I'm going to bid everyone adieu. Let's see. Thanks. Oh, no problem, Jake. And yeah, we're here to help. We're at your disposal. So please just let us know what we can do to help. And thank you for your business. Thank you for our opportunity. We couldn't do it without you. Take care, guys.